We continue today with that amazing story of Gideon, which teaches us just so much about how God uses ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances and situations. Israel was in deep trouble. At harvest time, the Midianites had been swooping down and stealing their crop and then destroying any that they didn't want, leaving the people desperate and in fear. Now it was Gideon who had an angel of the Lord visit with him, and he gave him these words. The angel said to Gideon, "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you." Mighty hero? Here was Gideon as frightened as anyone in all of Israel. And we find him hiding out of sight, just hoping to save a little grain, simply to survive. Now Gideon didn't believe in himself, but God did. And God had heard the cries of his people, and he had planned to use Gideon to rescue them. So Gideon was called by God into action to lead Israel to victory against the Midianites. Gideon, however, was still hesitant to follow the Lord, but he reluctantly obeyed. That night he went and tore down all of the statues and altars of Baal, and God's hand of protection spared him from the anger of the people the following day. Dear people, this is why they were in trouble. They had forgotten God, and they were following false gods. Gideon knew that God was with him, but he was still struggling with who he was called to be. He saw himself as a humble farmer, but God saw him as a mighty warrior, a hero even. But Gideon still needed more convincing before he went off to war with the enemy. So he asked God for another sign, the sign of the famous fleece that we read about in Judges 6. Now most of us know the story of the fleece. It's not new to us. We've grown up with it. Gideon wanted confirmation from God that he was in this, that God was with him. And so he put out a fleece on the ground and prayed that it would be wet and the ground all around would be dry when he woke up the next morning. It was. He still wasn't convinced though, even though he had wrung out a whole bowl full of water. It may have been just one of those misty nights, and the fleece may have attracted the moisture out of the air. I need to be sure. Lord, tonight can you do it the other way around, please? Make the ground wet and the fleece dry. It was. Now Gideon was not like the person who says, God, I will only believe you exist if you show me a sign. Gideon knew there was a God. He just wasn't sure that the Lord actually would help him in this big call upon his life. Now we are sometimes tempted to ask God for a sign when we need to make important decisions in life. This is not how God guides us. He has given us principles in his word about how we should make decisions. And so we should apply those principles to our life with wisdom so that we can make the right choices and decisions. What is a fleece? People sometimes use a fleece when they must make a decision and don't know what to do. It could be that we're faced with perhaps a job offer and we don't know whether to say yes or no. So you say to God, Lord, please give me a sign. Listen to this really important fact. Judges 6 is perfectly clear that Gideon knew exactly what God wanted him to do. The fleece was simply to confirm God's will, not to determine God's will. Read it yourself in Judges 6, verses 36 and 37. People lay out a fleece for all kinds of things today, but remember that it was originally used to confirm God's will, not to determine it. The message is clear. Gideon received double confirmation, if you like, of what he already knew to be the will of God. Judges 7 tells us the amazing story of how God used Gideon in a most unlikely way to win a great battle against the enemy. Now, if you're facing important decisions today, speak to God. Listen to his word to you. He always confirms his word. Let me close with these beautiful words from Matthew chapter 7, verse 7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Have a wonderful week. May God richly bless you so that you can be a blessing to others.